Hi everyone. Good to see you on my channel today. Today I will tell you a wonderful story. It is full of love and kindness. I hope you enjoy it and I wish you an enjoyable viewing experience. Thank you.
Than, a Vietnamese maid, has been working for an Arab family for 6 months. Working for this family has changed her perception of the life of rich people. Right now, she is standing behind her mistress and waiting for her to finish her phone call. But mistress is in no hurry. "You're right, darling. I deserve it all." This is the 5th time mistress repeats this phrase to someone on the phone. Then she laughs out loud and continues her chatter. If they made a movie about my youth, the movie would be called Stubborn May and Her Adventures on the Road to Happiness. Or a better version. It's Stubborn May and Her 9 Hopeless Suitors, says Mrs. May, and laughs even louder. Not 40 minutes later, the mistress finally ends her phone conversation. "Mrs. May, you and I need to make a menu list for Otis' birthday party. When will you have free time?" asked the maid Than. "Oh, I almost forgot. Thanks for reminding me. I think tomorrow night you and I can take care of the matter," Mrs. May replied. "Also, mistress, I have a favor to ask of you." Adam's servant lowered her head. "Than, when you need something, you don't need to be shy or afraid. What's wrong?" asked the mistress. "Could you give part of my paycheck a little ahead of time?" "No problem. Hand me my bag. It's somewhere in the living room," Mrs. May said. In a matter of seconds, Than went to the guest room and brought out Madam's purse. Mrs. May took out her purse, took out a few bills, and held it out to the servant. "I take it you need the money to buy an outfit for your son's birthday?" Mrs. May asked. "Yes, that's right. And how did you find out?" asked the maid. "Don't pay any attention. It's not important. You know what? Then look in my dressing room and pick out some dresses. Take any you like," Mrs. May said. Than couldn't believe her ears. Madame only wears dresses from famous couture. Each of her dresses costs a huge amount of money. She also said that she can pick out several of them. Than has been working for this mistress for 6 months now and has never ceased to be amazed at her manners. Such a humane woman is not often seen in such rich circles. The next day, Than actually chose 2 dresses from her mistress's closet. When she showed them off, Mistress Than was indignant. "It's understandable. You're shy anyway. You chose the simplest and cheapest dresses. Go again and pick the ones you really like. You know I'm giving them to someone else anyway," Mrs. May said. Now Than took great care to choose another dress for herself, the one her mistress had worn to meet the president of a country last year. She tried on the dress in front of the mirror and immediately glowed, then ran to her mistress to thank her a few times out of habit. As soon as Mrs. May saw her maid in the luxurious dress, presented her eyebrows and clapped her palms. "How little a woman needs to be happy. You're glowing. Walk like that," said Mrs. May. "Thank you, my lady. My people have a belief that if you wear the clothes of a good man, his fame and honor will also come to you. In this dress I feel as magnanimous as you do," said Than, barely choosing words of gratitude. "A beautiful belief of your people. You know that with this dress I bless you with a constant feeling of happiness, which I myself have been in for the last 20 years of my life," said Mrs. May. The girl was still glowing and twirled around in front of the mirror. Then she took off her dress, put it carefully in her bag and returned to her mistress. "Mistress May, you never talk about your past. It seems to me that you have seen a lot of things in this life. Or, am I wrong?" she asked. "That's right. If you are really interested, I will tell you after our little Prince Otis' birthday party," said Madame. Than eagerly began to look forward to that day. The birthday party of the young representative of the ruling dynasty was held in a pathos atmosphere. This is the 4th celebration in a year in this family. Each of them takes place surrounded by hundreds of rich and powerful families. Most of them do not boast the same flamboyant morals as Mrs. May. Than has been convinced of this many times. Is this how her mistress managed to become such a person? That was indeed an intriguing question. Finally, that promised day came. Madame Minnie likes to drink strong tea with plant milk, anticipating an intriguing story. Than had prepared a large teapot of strong tea in advance. "But were you willing to listen to my long story?" Mrs. May asked. "Yes, I am. I am completely different now. May was different then. So I will call my young self by my first name, just May." That's how Mistress began her story. Stubborn and May was 19 years old when she met a typical guy, Jeffrey. Jeffrey was no longer a young man at that time. As May later learned, he had 2 children by different women. Jeffrey didn't like a steady job, so he took temporary part-time jobs. And when he didn't have a part-time job, he was fed by his elderly mother. May at that time believed in a bright and eternal love, so she looked at the typical Jeffrey, and from him she drew a beautiful hero in her head. May was an unpretentious student. To surprise her, Jeffrey was enough to buy her ice cream and walk together in the park. Then they would come home to Jeffrey's mother's house and make love in a cramped room of the old house. The mother periodically resented May for not being her son's date, but Jeffrey reassured her, promising to always be there for her, no matter what may appear to him. It was about 6 months later when May felt morning sickness for the first time. She had heard that this was not a good thing for young girls, so she ran to the nearest drugstore to get the first pregnancy test of her life. All the way there and back, she prayed that the test would not at least portend big changes in her life. But nothing depended on the test. It showed what was formed. 2 stripes. May put the test aside and began to imagine. She will have a little man who will be very similar to her beloved and to herself. This little man would have his own character, his own likes and outlook on life. It will be noticeable from the first years of life. In short, it opens the door to a whole new facet of life. At that time, cell phones were not yet available to immediately report important news. The next appointments with Jeffrey were not until 3 days later. During those 3 days, May flew on the wings of happiness. She had already managed to come up with an image of the baby. A couple of times she stopped by the store for expectant moms, and on the way back she went through the names. When she met Jeffrey, she was very nervous. Previously, she had only seen a man being told of a pregnancy on television. There it was all very romantic and emotional, just like young May's expectations. "Jeffrey, I took a pregnancy test and it came back positive. Can you believe we're gonna have a baby together?" said May and hugged him. But Jeffrey was not happy. "Are you sure? How can you be? We've only been unprotected once." "Well, at least you got it right away." Young fool May continued to rejoice. Jeffrey hesitated. "What are you going to do about it?" Jeffrey asked. "What do you mean? Can there be any questions?" May was puzzled. "You see, what's the matter? A child requires constant expenses. Now look, you're a student. I have no fixed income. The baby will cry. You can't fool him with potatoes or pasta. He needs to buy his own food. Then he'll start asking for toys, and then the costs will only go up. Let me take you to a doctor I know. She can help you get rid of your pregnancy safely." May was not only young, but a real fool. Jeffrey's words had convinced her completely. She thought if the child was born, she would really suffer from poverty. She didn't know any other scenario. The doctor was not ceremonious, immediately sent for tests, and then scheduled for the next day a small operation, as they put it in professional language. May came home in a bad mood. She was comforted only by Jeffrey's words that it would be better for the child than for her to suffer in this world from poverty and malnutrition. In the evening before going to bed, May mourned for the still living child inside her, and in the morning she lay on the couch with swollen eyes. She only remembers the anesthesia being administered. Then she woke up half an hour later and it was all behind her. But for May, that day was the beginning of a half-lifelong hell. Jeffrey was waiting outside. He tried to calm May's constant crying. "You want to go get some ice cream? Would you like a chocolate bar?" May didn't want to talk to him at all. Many years later, May would mentally go back to those days, and in her mind she would beat Jeffrey with all her might. Many more times she would mentally berate that nay fool May. But at that time, life had quickly taken its toll. Instead of sending that Jeffrey to hell, after a couple of weeks, May couldn't stand him anymore. She missed him, and he was just glad that the fool was ready to jump into bed with him again. More walks in the parks, again the pinnacle of happiness in the form of ice cream and chocolate. And after we're again indulging in flat verse in a cramped room in his mother's old house, May passed the winter session at the university with difficulty. She herself lived at that time with her own sister, with whom relations were strained. During the session, when May had to do a lot of work, her sister got mad. Why she does not help at home for the children, do not look after the children. To protect herself from these claims, during the session, May decided to stay with Jeffrey. He didn't mind, of course. At night, May studied hard for her exams. In the morning, she went to bed for a nap or two. But instead of napping, the young ones would merge again in carnal verses, and so the second pregnancy was not long in coming. Jeffrey didn't bother to explain this time. He laughed like a horse, pleased with himself. You know, other people try for years to conceive and they can't get pregnant. All my May has to do is stand next to me to get knocked up. He used to tell his Western friends like me, and laughed at the top of his voice. May berated herself and hated herself. But what good was her suffering if another tragedy lay ahead? The second time she did not persuade Jeffrey much. She went and lay down on the couch herself. Another half-hour's sleep, and then half a lifetime of mental anguish. She didn't get off easy this time. A couple months after the second abortion, she fell into the worst depression. All day long, she'd lie there staring at nothing. Jeffrey was still around her, still offering her ice cream or chocolate bars. May was depressed for a month. During this time, she almost dropped out of school, then gradually returned to normal life. As soon as she passed the summer session, she went to get a job. With a job lucky, she was taken saleswoman in an elite boutique men's clothing. Jeffrey immediately resented it. A lot of men would go there every day. And not just any men, but rich and wealthy men. May, you're not thinking of finding someone richer, are you? Jeffrey asked all the time. May wasn't interested in talking to him. Indeed, the first 2 paychecks May had spent on herself had completely cured her of Jeffrey, and she had developed a lasting aversion to the man. She tried to explain her position to him, but he was a primitive type who couldn't be reached by words. Yeah, you got yourself some rich people. You're all like that. When you show a bill, you're ready to run after anyone. Jeffrey, with a can of beer in his hand, was indignant. There's no need for unnecessary talk. You and I shouldn't have any questions for each other. May was still trying to get through to him. But no, Jeffrey wasn't going to calm down. I'm not gonna let you just walk away from me. I'll get you out of the ground and lock you in my basement and make up the most painful death. Jeffrey was furious. Threats, blackmail, and harassment lasted almost 6 months. Jeffrey knew very well that May and his own sister Viola had a strained relationship. On this ground, he decided to sink even lower. Jeffrey came to Viola and told him that May did not work in an expensive store, but became a girl of easy behavior. Viola didn't bother to check. Why would she want to, when such a good excuse to oppress her little sister? But Viola was actually much more insidious. She added a little something of her own to primitive Jeffrey's May legend, and wrote long letters of denunciation to her mother. Mother would get turned on by the letters. She'd call May and demand that she drop everything and come back to the village immediately. For May, it was the worst fear of all. Not because she hates the village and her home so much, but because in her home village, there is a drunken father and a mother who is always rescuing him. Mai grew up in this hell. From her childhood, she only remembers her own evening prayers to get away from this house as soon as possible. And now returning was like death to her. Foolish May hadn't yet realized that she could very well do without that bitch of a sister and hysterical mother instead of putting them in their places. She was forever feeling guilty. It was a great stroke of luck and fate that she had somehow miraculously gotten the idea to go to her sister's and rent a lonely grandmother's room. And thank God she was smart enough not to give her new address primitively to Jeffrey. That was the end of that unhappy story, and May's life was just beginning. That day was a most ordinary workday for May. The door of the boutique opened, and a statuesque young man walked in. Maya already knew well what to do in such cases. She smiled broadly and was just about to greet the visitor. He beat her to it and asked, "Can I help you with something?" Maya was confused. In general, she usually said this phrase to visitors, but here the young man dazzled her with his wit. In the next moment, the stately man laughed, took out a chocolate bar and his purse and handed it to the girl. "I apologize for putting you in such an awkward position. Next time, if such a second wit comes along, don't be confused. Would you advise me to help myself?" said the man and continued to stare at Maya intently. This look confused her a lot. The man generously bought out of the change he didn't take, and the change there was like a week's pocket money for me at that time. At last he promised to come back again tomorrow. The next day he came again with a chocolate bar, again bought some small change for fabulous money and didn't take change. Not a month later, he was treating May to a meal at a nearby restaurant. Turns out one man's name was Sam. Sam turned out to be a complicated guy. He was proud of his ancestry, mentioning his membership in the family of a well-known politician in the country. Such familiarity flattered May. She had a vague idea of the life of such people. The magazines which her friends passed from hand to hand and read from cover to cover were full of photographs of the lives of such persons. The prospect of being among them went through the roof over May's head. She called it the lofty word love. May knew how to love with all her soul, and in every such love she burned to the ground. This flattered Sam, who was usually used to superficial relationships. "Star of my dark night, the light, the charm of mine eyes. I have a proposition for you," Sam May once said. Yes, he knew how to flatter beautifully. May was unarmed before his pathos phrases and very flattery. "I'll follow you to the ends of the earth," May thought, but she answered briefly that everything would be as Sam said. And that's what he wanted. "You've had enough socks and underwear for one man. Let's go to my office. You work with me around me, you'll get experience. You'll become a strong specialist," Sam said. For student May, it was an unthinkable dream. Sam will take over his father's consulting company. The company's name is on the public's lips, and a third-year student getting a job with such a company, it's already a career skyrocket. May didn't hesitate. That same day, she told the owner of the boutique that she would now work as an auditor for a leading company. Now, instead of the boutique, May goes every day to the prestigious business center, on the roof of which Sam's luxurious office is located. From the very first day, she realized that she has absolutely no clue in her field of work. "And what do they teach you there at those universities?" jokingly asked Sam, who himself studied at a foreign university. May is embarrassed, nervous, and angry with herself. "Don't worry about it. You don't have to do important tasks here, do you? Think of your main function as lighting this building. That's good enough for me," Sam said. This approach seemed to May to be proof of Sam's love. Working for a prestigious company, May took it as a great achievement in her life. Before going out to work, she spent money and time on selecting decent clothes and accessories. The passel of a respectable guy like Sam can't look like a mere girl. May's first day of work in Sam's company was memorable for the rest of her life. He met her at the elevator exit and led her to the general office. There sat a very striking young woman. May felt a twinge inside, but she put it down to the stress of her first day on the job. "May, I'd like you to meet Nally. She'll be helping you with your adjustment. You'll be working with her on all the day-to-day tasks," Sam said. Nally didn't hide that she wasn't happy to see May, but she didn't show her emotions in front of Sam. After a short tour of the office and a quick introduction to the new colleagues, Sam took May into his office and said, "You still have a lot to learn. For example, corporate ethics. According to corporate ethics, there can be no personal relations between employees. But I violated that clause for you. And now I ask the same approach from you. No one can know that you and I are in love. No one, under any circumstances," Sam said. Even though May had turned 22 by this time, she was still a complete fool. That's why the word corporate etiquette worked well on her. She had no idea yet that corporate etiquette was not the enemy of personal relationships, much less love. They fit together perfectly in any environment, but that kind of thinking is foreign to the current May. "Your workstation is here. Just don't you dare take up desk space or bring your own supplies. There's no point. No one has been here for more than 2 weeks, Neely declared, when May was about to enter the workplace with full enthusiasm. "Why hasn't anyone been here for more than 2 weeks? Careful," asked the knave May. Neely looked down at her, then twirled her finger at her temple. And that was the end of the acquaintance. Stupid May didn't realize that she had just signed up for all kinds of hellish abuse. Instead, her brain came to completely naive conclusions. Everything here is so strict, all the staff must be so serious, and issues are dealt with in a serious manner. And such personnel is very expensive in the market. I want to be like them. I need to grow up to them. Against their background, I'm like a shepherdess. But I'm lucky to be here at all. I'll learn a lot from these people," repeated her childish brain. Then she remembered Nayli's words that no one stays here for more than 2 weeks. Instead of heeding those words, May somehow decided she would prove otherwise. She had a new goal to stay here for a long time because she had no other option for her life scenario. So May voluntarily entered into an atmosphere of incredible psychological pressure, but there was still more to come. 2 weeks passed. We didn't drop out. This inspired her to continue her exploits. By the beginning of the second month, Sam called Neely and May into his office and assigned a common task. The company's anniversary date is coming up soon. The girls must come up with options for the celebration and provide Sam with them. The girls didn't have to agonize for long. They scattered the celebration of their dreams on paper and provided Sam. Nayli did a great job. She had thought of everything. The budget was optimal. The script was good. What you've got, May, is some kind of children's party. Don't show this to anyone else. It's an embarrassment. Sam gave his opinion. May was shocked. And the night before, she and Sam had thought of this very thing together. Today, he blamed it on her and called it a children's matinee. Such insidious manipulation in response. May didn't protest again. She just spurred herself on even more. Henceforth, she should exercise more imagination and discuss things with Sam even more thoroughly. Since Sam didn't approve, she was the one who made a mistake. The party was a success. The whole time, Nayli felt like the queen of this office because she was in charge of the whole corporate ball. But her joys were also in vain. Toward the beginning of the 4th month, Sam introduced a third girl, Audrey, to his 2 secretaries. Audrey, too, was young and beautiful. On the inside, too, she was just like the company, full of illusions and dreams of a bright future. Unlike the 2 of you, Audrey has a background in consulting, but not enough for a career in our company. So Audrey will have to start with simple tasks while she will be in the same department with you, Sam said. Allegedly professional and experienced, Audrey also did not protest against this decision of the spectacular Sam, and May's everyday life became even more unbearable. Now there are 3 of them. All 3 of them fulfill one function, which is determined only by Sam. This company loved to hold lavish corporate parties. All it took was an occasion. It didn't take long to find the occasion. One day, Sam reconvened the 3 office beauties and set a new challenge. In a month's time, we're merging with an important new company. We need to celebrate this event in a big way. Each of you must give me a script for the celebration, Sam said. All 3 of them's eyes lit up. It was a great opportunity to show their creativity in front of Sam. The scripts were ready the next day when the girls told him. Sam informed them that he would review all the options in the evening. Every minute until tonight stretched on for ages for the girls. May waited with dread, though she tried her best, and to recall her previous embarrassment, so as not to get screwed again. She decided to discreetly look at her co-workers Nayli and Audrey's options, while she was sneakily flipping through Audrey's holiday script. Then she noticed Audrey had thought she was head and shoulders above the 2 of them from day one, and now she's freaking out. May, aren't you ashamed of violating corporate ethics so blatantly? How did you even get here? Do you realize where you are and how you should behave? Audrey exclaimed. May was really scared. She could have immediately eliminated the conflict, but her brain had long ago stopped working rationally. Emotions kicked in. May exploded too. In all this time, the feeling never left her that not only she had secrets with the management, but also these 2 girls. More than once she noticed the tons of stares, the ambiguous gestures, and the competitive spirit for Sam's attention. It was there for all to see. Only the girls were pretending that they were actually building a career here. That's all the tension. It just exploded in May's head in a big explosion. Who the hell do you think you are? You think you have the right to lecture others. You think you're better than everyone else, but you don't actually do anything. May was talking nonsense. But now it was important for her to vent her emotions, which were at an all-time high. Her mind had been asleep for a long time. A couple more of those phrases against each other, and May clawed at Audrey's hair with her sharp points. Audrey's tall stilettos could not withstand such an unexpected attack, and she collapsed to the floor. May found herself in a comfortable position. From above, she could strike with her small fist or kick with the toe of her sharp shoes. May did both, with great gusto, and to the squeals of the rest of the office. At this time, Sam was sitting in the conference room, with the important partners sitting around him. Sam was just talking about the wonderful corporate traditions and human potential of his company. The partners had no doubts about the truth of his words when they heard the select mats, screams, and shrieks of the other employees outside the window. Sam instantly jumped out of the meeting room and saw 2 fighting office beauties. He couldn't bear to see it. He didn't see the point in taking them apart or understanding the anatomy of the conflict. What was important to him now was to save his face in front of his partners. That's where his integrity, as always, came in handy. Call the police immediately and turn them both in, he said. The police arrived within minutes. By this time, May had gotten off Audrey and was trying to calm her breathing. But Audrey was crafty enough to get up off the floor so immediately. I'm dying. Call an ambulance. Save me. she said in a whisper. The ambulance came quickly too. Within minutes, the rest of the staff were returning to their workplaces. The theater was over, the performers sent to their respective destinations. May is at the police station, Audrey at the hospital. Under further questioning, May is told that her guilt is aggravating. Not only had she attacked Audrey, but she had killed her baby in her belly. It turned out Audrey was pregnant. May now faces serious punishment. The interrogations were very difficult. The investigator exerted on the girl Krista Farrell's psychological pressure to bring the case to the end as quickly as possible. It remained only to find out some details before the trial. Referring to this, May was again returned to solitary confinement in the isolation ward. But that wasn't the end of the story, it was the beginning. Back in her solitary confinement cell, May met a middle-aged woman there. May flinched at the stranger's gaze. Her gaze was glassy, and her appearance reminded her of some kind of shamaness from the Middle Ages. "You're really sick, aren't you?" the new neighbor asked, not waiting for May's reaction. May shrugged in response and took a seat in the corner of the cell. Despite May's gloomy disposition, the conversation glued things together nicely. Turns out the new neighbor's name is Nicole. Nicole is not an easy girl. She has a whole team of helpers. True, they're invisible assistants. They extract true information from outer space and whisper in Nicole's ear. "If you're a clairvoyant or a sorceress, couldn't you foresee getting here?" May asked. "You're funny. Do you think I was put away for a crime too?" "No, I'm here voluntarily. I need to buy time," Nicole said. May wondered how it was possible to be in this damp and dark cell willingly. Nicole noticed that May was good at this kind of trick. "You haven't thought about me, honey. You need to think about yourself at all costs. You're in real danger," Nicole said. "What can I do? A man should be able to take responsibility for his actions. I only beat up a girl a little out of jealousy, but I don't feel sorry for her. Later, I found out she had a miscarriage because of me. I killed her baby, you know? It's not the first baby I've killed in my life. I've killed my own before, and now I killed someone else's unborn child. How can I claim to be free after that?" said May. "Fool, you are this. If you don't fight, you'll really end up in jail for a long time. I can see that you are not really guilty," said Nicole, thoughtfully going over her cards. "But what you say can't be used as evidence. You have to prove that I'm not guilty. And who's going to do that?" "A lawyer. A lawyer only works for a lot of money. I don't have the money or the family to hire a lawyer," said May. "Why do I call you stupid, you know? Because you only see yourself in this whole story, and you see yourself as extremely weak and insignificant. Look at my cards. I see a lot of people in your story. At least a few women are definitely interested, and a few men. If you go down, some of them will benefit in some way. But at the same time, some of those men are against that benefit. That's interesting. We'll have to spread the cards on you." "We can still do that. We've got all night," Nicole said. Sam was very concerned about Audrey's condition. He couldn't wait to talk to her, but she still hadn't come to her senses. At least that was what her attending physician, Emily, had informed him. Sam didn't manage to get into Audrey's room until a few days later. She was barely talking, barely aware of where she was, and she was certainly breathing at half strength, though she looked quite alert. "Sam, my love, I'm so sorry. Our baby died. I don't know how I'm gonna live with myself. I cried," she did. "I'm with you. We'll get through this together." Sam struggled to get the phrase "together" out. It was the right word, but it wasn't sincere. He cared more about getting himself out of this story than anything else right now. After spending some time by Audrey's side, Sam got ready to head back to the office. "Honey, I'm trying my best, but I can't seem to get better. I think something irreparable has happened to me. I'm afraid I'm not gonna make it," Audrey repeated over and over again. Sam, who thought he was the king of manipulation, found himself weak to other people's manipulation. A murdered child, a battered tender girl, crippled health. What a task for a skillful manipulator. Sam bid her farewell and headed for Emily's doctor's office, as if she was expecting him to stop by and see her. "Yes, your girl's condition is really serious. She lost a lot of blood. There are some other complications. But we are fighting it. We are concerned about the girl's psychological state. She has received a very serious blow. She can't do without your help and support," said the doctor. "Yes, I understand. I'll do my best." I had to repeat the right words again. "I've been a doctor for 10 years and I've seen hundreds of stories like this. Do you need to set yourself up for the long haul? It's not until you have a new baby that you let go of the emotional impact of a miscarriage. I think you understand that, the doctor added. Yes, I do. Sam had to say the right words again and sign his name to them. He couldn't tell the doctor right now that Audrey was just another object of his amusement, and getting pregnant again was out of the question. She had come up with a devious plan of her own and was going to implement it in the near future. Sam in this situation has no chance to speak this truth. Sam left the doctor's office in a pensive state and went to his office. Emily hurried into Audrey's room. Look, your Sam isn't that hopeless. I told him exactly what you wanted me to tell him. He said exactly what you wanted him to say. He may not like the idea of having another baby right away, but he's got time to think about it and take it. Either way, it'll have an effect, Emily said. Thank you. It's the kind of challenge that friends get to know each other for. Tell me, how can I thank you? Audrey asked. Oh, it's okay. It's okay. I think it's female solidarity, said Emily. Then I suggest we drink in honor of that solidarity. When you're done tonight, come to my room. I've ordered rolls and a nice French wine. You know how hard it is to lie here all day and play the dying princess, Audrey said and laughed out loud. Emily went back to the study. She liked the idea of drinking French wine in the company of her longtime younger friend. True, she'd been planning to go shopping after work to get some shopping done with the money Audrey had given Emily to talk to Sam. But that was okay, the money could wait. It's all about working it off. May, I don't think I'm gonna see you again, said Nicole to her cellmate. What does that mean? May asked. Now we'll lay out the cards and find out, said Nicole. Then she took out her card and started laying it out. Yes, it seems that tomorrow my investigator is going to get a smackdown from his superiors. Then he'll want to close his little tails as quickly as possible. And stealing from a train station isn't exactly the worst crime. If I try, I can get him into a trance and out of here tomorrow, said Nicole. May stared blankly at the ceiling and silently waved her hand. Let me guess for you too, for the future, suggested Nicole. Let's do it, but I think I already know what awaits me. You better tell me what's in store for me after prison. Will I be able to go back to normal life, or will prison break me completely? That's a tongue lashing. I can see you got a chance. You're gonna get out of here. I'll tell you more than that. You'll be out in just a few days. Yeah, I can see that. You're protected. Your guardian angel is working hard for you. Soon he's gonna get you out of here, said Nicole and waved her rosary beads. Thank you, but I don't have much faith in that. Now let's see what's on your destiny, Nicole said and started to lay out the cards again. May waited with bated breath. She is afraid to hear something tragic for herself. She doesn't see any other way of events except a continuous punishment for the mistakes of her youth. Listen, and your soulmate, you are not a simple man, said Nicole. Oh, I'm so tired of the complicated ones, said May. They're just random people in your life. But the one who will come into your life in the future, he is completely different. He is honest with you. He will come into your life with a big, pure love. He will have some big plans for you at that time. But you watch, you may not let him into your life. Then he'll just leave like that, said Nicole, and started to redraw her cards. Well, if it's so vague, he'll probably leave like that, without even meeting me, said May. And no, I see a sequel. It's just that you're going to have such a colorful romance that it has some dramatic moments. You'll still end up together in the end. He's so strong and powerful among people, but very soft and sensitive with those close to him. If you let him into your life, everything will completely change. Everything will be completely different. Your mistake right now is idealizing every idiot. Stop doing that. Now it's all coming together, Nicole said with a satisfied look. Everything sounds beautiful coming out of your mouth. We'll see, May said. Nicole's predictions did nothing to lift her spirits. May dozed off in her dark thoughts. Nicole couldn't calm down for a long time. She kept anticipating tomorrow's freedom. Ever since Audrey went to the hospital and May went to jail, Neely is full of hope. She's sure her two rivals have destroyed themselves. Now she's got all the cards in her favor. All that's left is to show a little pressure on Sam and get him firmly attached to her. It's been a long time coming. Sam, I can see you're tired. Recent events have been weighing on your mind. Come to my place tonight and we'll relax. Neely offered to take advantage of the moment. I'd love to, but not tonight. We'll relax on Saturday. I've got some work to do tonight. You can go home now, Sam said and headed for his office. Neely didn't like that. It was getting close to 9 o'clock. Sam decided to stay in the office. Something was obviously wrong. She decided to pretend to go home. She stayed outside the building watching his window, in case he was thinking of bringing someone else into the office disguised as an employee. But Sam actually took time out to think about what was going on. He didn't like the prospect of messing around with Audrey, although after talking to her he had a brilliant idea. Maybe he should really marry Audrey, thus appeasing his parents, and continue to live in the usual rhythm, going through young ladies in the usual mode. All that remained was to work out the details. With those thoughts in mind, he pulled out his phone and machine opened his favorite social networking site. She saw that Audrey had recently posted a photo of herself from the hospital. Dozens of friends had written words of support and sympathy under her picture. Sam automatically wanted to see more pictures of this girl. There were a lot of them, but Sam decided to get to the beginning of the story. 1,000 different pictures flashed before his eyes as his eyes grew tired and watery. One picture caught his eye longer. There, in the company of several other girls in a nightclub, one of those faces seemed very familiar. Sam enlarged the photo and recognized the girl as tonight's doctor, Emily. I wonder if they've known each other for a long time, he asked himself. I'm not your slave. You can't restrict my freedom. Agatha was indignant. What slavery are we talking about, Agatha? You are completely free in every way. All you have to do is behave ethically and morally. Please take some time and read about it. I'm sure you'll be up to the task. Amir tried to get through to his young wife. No, you have no right to teach me about life. In fact, David and I are developing a serious relationship. I'm going away with him, Agatha said. How can you think of the child you're carrying? It's the only heir to this dynasty. Amir was indignant. But further arguments were useless. Agatha packed her things and immediately moved to David's hotel. And after a couple of days, they flew out of the country. Now Agatha was happy with everything. David turned out to be so honorable that he agreed to accept this child and raise it as his own. He understood perfectly well that representatives of the royal dynasty are bound to be useful to their relatives someday. This would open up tremendous opportunities for his relatives. Only Agatha didn't realize that. That is, in fact, why she went back to her dove to get rid of this baby as soon as possible and return to her hedonistic lifestyle. Today is exactly 14 days since May has been lying in her bed at home, staring at the ceiling while she was in the isolation ward, determined to live every night, every day like it was her last. It was there that she realized the value of freedom. It's where she had new dreams, new plans. There she grieved all day long that now these plans are not destined to come true, as only prison lies ahead. But the sorceress and clairvoyant Nicole was right. She was indeed released after a few days. Only later did it become clear that she had managed to save herself from slander. Thanks to Sam's attentiveness. After leaving the lockup, May had no desire to see not this Sam, not his up-and-coming company with its employees. But Sam met her at the gate of the detention center and drove her home. On the way, he tried to convince May that he had nothing with any of these girls. Maybe she'd fall for it. Sam hoped to himself again. But after suffering so much, May finally wised up. You can take my resignation any way you want. If you have any conscience at all, you can send my paycheck to my card. Until then, I have nothing to talk to you about, said May. She slammed the door of his car and left. She seemed relieved at that moment. But a couple days later, panic gripped her soul. Inside herself, she felt a deafening emptiness. Had this slippery type managed to become such a huge part of her life? May tried not to think about him, but the inner pain and emptiness brought her back to the memories again and again. Another week later, she couldn't get out of bed in the morning. She had an interview scheduled for a new job closer to lunchtime. She planned to call in the morning and cancel the interview, but by lunchtime, she couldn't find the energy to do so. By the evening, she'd given up on the whole thing altogether. May intended to lie in bed for a couple days, then get up and get on with her life. The strength didn't return on the third or fourth day. May recognized this state. She had been in it several times before. This state is called depression itself. The previous time she had promised herself that as soon as she saw the first signs of depression, she would go to the pharmacy to get the right pills. This time she couldn't remember them. Even if she had remembered, she wouldn't have had the energy to get to the pharmacy. On one of those bluey days, the landlady came to see her. She was angry. She was understandable. The due date had passed almost a month ago. She demanded that she either pay the rent immediately, along with the penalty, or vacate the apartment. Today, under pressure from this woman, May could barely find the strength to call Sam and remind him of the balance of her paycheck. Sam seemed to be waiting for just that. He had personally brought the money and paid for her apartment. But he wasn't going to leave. It seemed he was counting on their misunderstood relationship to continue. "Baby, you're just tired. You need to rest. Stay home. And tomorrow we'll go to the doctor. He will prescribe good pills, and by the evening you'll be better," Sam reassured her. May didn't react to that. Tomorrow is a blur. That's as long as it takes to endure this gaping emptiness and pain inside. And May might not make it to tomorrow. Perhaps that would be the best solution for her. Those were roughly the thoughts rolling around in her head as Sam fed her false promises again. Night has fallen, but no sleep for May. Her heart itch intensified, as if there were 1,000 huge devils inside her screaming and demanding to be presented with the meaning of life immediately. And it was as if the meaning of life had left her forever on purpose. By morning, May no longer doubted it, and the false beliefs about the meaninglessness of life spurred her into action. She needs to end this meaningless life. Strangely enough, she had the strength for this action. She quickly dressed on the table, left a farewell note to an unknown person, and went outside. Now all she had to do was find a place where she could say goodbye to her life in peace. In search of such a place, she wandered around the city for a long time. Morning came and it was already getting lighter. When the first rays of the sun appeared, she finally found such a place. A bridge on the embankment by the highest old canal. The height of the bridge is decent, so any suicide has a good chance of achieving its goal. May quickened her steps when she reached the middle of the bridge, stopped and started looking for a way to climb over the concrete fence. She tried every way she could, but something wasn't working. The fence was quite high. She gathered all her strength in her fist and jumped up. The next attempt was successful. May managed to grab the edge of the concrete fence with one foot. Now she was huffing and puffing to get her whole body through. "Hey, you're crazy. You're out of your mind." She heard a stern voice close by. Before she could look up and see the person, someone grabbed her by the scruff of the neck and pulled her backwards with all her strength. May fell to the pavement with a thud. A pain in her tailbone brought her back to her senses a little. "You think there's no suffering after death? I'll tell you, the suffering will be eternal. And there's no going back. And while you're alive, there's always a chance to take a step back and choose the right path." Taratoria is a strange old woman. "Grandma, what do you want?" "Go where you're going," May replied. "Right now you feel like death is the only right thing to do. But it's a false feeling. It's a huge trap in your mind. Believe me, I spent 40 years of my life in the mental health service. You just suffered through life. I live nearby. Come and see me. You can even stay with me for a while if you want. I don't have anyone either. I'm suffering too. Be kind enough to brighten my loneliness," said Granny. Baba Dori had to resort to deceit, blackmail, and manipulation to persuade this young fool to move away from this place. In the end, she had succeeded. Within half an hour, she was already sitting outside her kitchen where she used to like to sit. Believe it? The tail of the wheel? "It might be hard for you to tell your pain, but I would listen to you," said Grandma Dori. The hurt child that has been sitting inside May for years, battered by her excessive expectations of life, it was as if she had been waiting for this moment. She told the unfamiliar Baba everything from the moment she was born until now. From the very first sentences, tears flowed from her eyes. That's a good sign. Let her cry, Baba Dori thought. May didn't have time to finish her story. She heard strange sounds in the lonely old woman's apartment. It was a baby crying. "Oh, the baby's awake. It's hard for me to take care of him. Please go to the living room. Take the baby in your arms and bring him here. It's time to feed him," said Grandma Dori. May silently did everything. "Whose baby is it? Where is its mother?" May asked. "His mother has gone to America to settle her personal life. She got him pregnant in another country. She came back here specifically to dump the baby somewhere else. She stayed with me for a couple weeks, looking for childless families. I guess she didn't find anyone. Didn't bother explaining herself either. One day she went out on business, left the baby with me and never came back. It's been almost 2 months. Alone, trying to get out. It's an innocent creature," said Baba Dori. "And you know what? Give it to me. His mother probably won't come back," May said. Baba Dori looked carefully into her eyes and noticed that there was a faint glint in them, and May's movements and words were noticeably more cheerful. From the height of her years lived, she realized that the puzzle was coming together perfectly. This baby could really distract this crazy woman from suicidal thoughts. Are you sure you can handle it? 'Cause I've already arranged for my neighbor to put him in an orphanage. If you suddenly want to die again, what will happen to the baby? Asked Grandma Dory. I think that if I have a baby in my arms, I will hardly ever climb the bridge. All my grief is because May almost said something about her past sins, but she stopped just in time. And so the next day May carries a bundle in her hands, which is neither a kitten nor a puppy, but a separate person, carrying it to her rented apartment. Money in her pocket for only a week. There is an absolute void in her head about how to care for and comfort this little weirdo. But if all that isn't enough, there's plenty more to suffer about. May is now unemployed. She has no loved ones, with one foot still in the depression and certainly no prospects ahead. At home, she put the small bundle on her old couch and sat by the window. She tried to find a single hopeful thought for her future, but her mind was empty. Suddenly she had a regret. It would have been better if she had managed to get off the bridge yesterday morning. At this time today, city services would have picked up her body by now, or maybe by now the pathologist would have completed the autopsy to sign the body's disposition papers. May shuddered at her thoughts of how one could at 24 years old get to this point. Why are thoughts running ahead of her and leading her into some kind of abyss? Reality actually changes much slower than the scary pictures in her head. She reassured herself. She just had to be patient for a while. She sent to herself the next minute and was surprised. This is quite a strange rhetoric for her. Later she began to develop the thought further. Why would a person need patience? It didn't take long for the second thought to come, and then to give the universe an opportunity to show its plans for you. Strange rhetoric again, and after a while, another strange thought appeared. Darkness creates a whole new reality. For a man to find something real, the false must burn to the ground. It's all about me. May thought and was surprised at herself again. Only a few days later, she found that the gaping inner emptiness had turned into something bright and large. It turned out that this feeling was propelling her through life at the speed of a jet rocket. It had been for weeks now. She looked back on the immediate past and noticed positive changes. For example, she found a job the same day she brought someone else's baby into her rented apartment. By the evening of that day, May received a call from an old acquaintance who worked for a large international company. She informed her that they needed a freelancer. Mai automatically informed her that she could only work remotely. The acquaintance said it was convenient for the company too. That wasn't. They promised to pay twice a month. The rate was above the city average. She has already managed to get the first part of her salary and spent half of the money to buy supplies for the baby. Now they can go out in a stroller for walks, and all her grief and heartache remain somewhere behind, like a terrible dream. On one of these days, while walking with the baby, a young man, unremarkable in appearance, came up to Bert and introduced himself as Ashley. It turned out that Ashley lives somewhere in the neighborhood, works as a translator. Not into anything. Dreams of growing old somewhere in the country. Not much ambition. May thought to herself. You'll forgive me for being so intrusive. I'm fascinated by moms with babies. Motherhood suits you so well. I think your husband is a very lucky man. Ashley suddenly said. I don't have a husband. And the baby's not mine. I accidentally took him in when he jumped off a bridge, said May. Well, really, what's the point of embellishing reality? People often want to fall into illusions and false ideas about others, so they don't notice how they begin to play roles that are not their own. And May got bored of all this recently. The habit of conforming to expectations remained somewhere in the depths of her depressing days. Ashley was dumbfounded by those words. May didn't bother to explain. When the baby grows up, I'll tell her the same thing. What's the point of lying? It's better to be honest from the start and teach him to live with that truth, said May. Ashley was clearly not ready for that kind of honesty, but not 3 days later, in his mind, May went from being just an ordinary neighbor to St. May. All day long, she never left his head. She's unique. Ashley thought about her. Now he looked forward to their walks together in the nearest park. After about 3 months, May began to avoid Ashley's company. She didn't explain why. What was the point of bothering to explain? She just didn't want to. That's all, she told herself. But things were just beginning for Ashley. He'd suffered for real to ease the pain of unrequited love. He was quickly maturing to accept the woman he loved with her own child. Right outside the house in the backyard, he proposed to her. She thought for a couple of seconds. He has his own place, which means I can save a considerable amount of money that will go towards the baby and my development. I've known you long enough, so I won't be flirtatious and ask for time to think about it. We'd agree, May said. The very next day, Ashley took his new wife to his house. Within a week, he had built a nursery, bought some toys, and was actively involved in the process of raising the little man. In between, they gathered a small circle of friends and announced that from now on they were going to be together forever. After all this fuss, May remembered that the baby should be given a name. It's all this time. She just calls him Weirdo. She looked up 1,000s of variations of names of people and sculptures of this crown prince on the internet and found a suitable one. Let it be Aziz, a respected, revered man. Translation: the first 2 years of married life passed unnoticed because they were full of harmony and happiness. Starting in the 3rd year, Ashley began to disappear more from home. May did not pay much attention to this. In general, she preferred complete freedom in relationships when her husband was not around. She did not suffer in the least. She took care of Aziz's development, learned new languages, started several hobbies, read serious books, made noise in social networks, and believed in some vague bright future, which she was not able to formulate yet. One such day, Ashley didn't come home for a sleepover. May worried all night. Suddenly there was some kind of misfortune. He showed up in the morning. Drunk out of his mind, he didn't seem to be able to make it home on his own. Someone dropped him off and left him in the driveway. May's anger made the blood rush to her head. Her alcoholic husband was clearly not something she was willing to put up with. Ashley walked into the apartment and slumped in the hallway. She didn't feel bad about leaving him there. Just why would a child want to see such a thing? It was with great difficulty that she coaxed the nearly unconscious Ashley to the couch in the living room. She decided to lay him down here. In the meantime, 2 putts fell out of his jacket pocket. She tucked Ashley in properly first, covered him with a blanket, and decided to examine the vouchers in detail. What a surprise! A voucher written with the last name of 2 people, Ashley himself and someone named Viola. May took a seat by the window and smiled. How on earth had her intuition been right? I mean, she's been watching her buddy Viola and Ashley's husband look at each other since the beginning. At the same time, each of them pretending not to tolerate the other. May took a timeout for a few days before making any decision, and it didn't take long to make a decision. The rivals are not some stranger, but rather a familiar enough friend with whom she has a long-standing relationship, which meant that teaching them a lesson would be even more interesting, especially if we take into account that Viola has been married to a good guy for a long time and is famous for her exemplary spouts nice. The next day, May called her pal Viola as if casually. There was no need to beat around the bush. Viola was the first to tell her that in a week, she was leaving for some exotic country to solve some business problems. The country of destination coincided with the country on the voucher. Viola, who are your closest people? Who would you like to share the brightest moments of your life with? May asked. Suddenly. By that moment, everyone around her was used to May's unpredictability. So Viola answered honestly. But my husband first of all, then my parents, then my friends and colleagues, and I love everyone, Viola said. Well, have a nice trip. You don't have to run on business, May said and hummed up. Ashley explained his departure in a similar way. His company was forming a partnership with some overseas corporation, and to solve all the issues in some way. The management had chosen this completely initiative-less employee. May wished him well and emphasized that she had always believed in him. The enthusiastic lovers flew off to an exotic island. The unpleasant news caught them by surprise at the end of the first week. Viola's father was the first to call. Viola, what's going on in your life? Why don't you explain it to us? The father sounded menacing. Dad, what are you talking about? What do you mean? You can't see what you're doing. And your mother and I told you 100 times that you should have thought before you married that David, my father said and hung up the phone. It was clear from his voice that he was very nervous and angry. But the essence of the claims Viola still did not understand. Another half an hour later, Ashley received a similar call from his closest friend Christopher. Christopher, what the hell is this? He asked. What are you talking about? What's going on? Ashley was puzzled. But I'm actually calling you to ask you about it. Well, I'll leave you to it. You'll tell me when you get here. But it doesn't make any sense, Christopher said, and then he changed the subject. Ashley, I still don't understand what's going on in his absence. The next day, Viola got a call from her mother. Daughter, you finally wised up. I've always told you that David wasn't worthy of you. 3 years of marriage, he deserved to be punished like this. You did the right thing. I'm personally very happy for you, said my mom. What did I arrange? I'm just away on business. I think I don't know something, asked Viola. Oh, stop pretending. There's no need to be embarrassed about it. Every woman has the right to be happy. Now you will be told by all sorts of moralists that you should have divorced first, then only start a new relationship. Don't listen to them. The main thing is that I support you. But my father and I went to pick out a present for you. True, he's cranky and resistant, but he'll be just as nice when you arrive, replied the mother. It was only on the third day that everything became clear to Viola. As soon as she flew away on vacation with her lover, all their relatives, acquaintances, friends received the very real invitations to the wedding of Ashley and Viola. Now it's clear why all the loved ones are calling one by one and can't specifically formulate their questions. They are shocked that family people have decided to get married. When Ashley and Viola realized that they were exposed and even took revenge already, the whole high from the vacation somewhere flew away. But they didn't want to lose their paid vouchers. They decided to rest until the end of the term and then return home. At home, it was no fun. Viola had a suitcase of belongings waiting at the door. Ashley returned to the empty apartment. May had plenty of time to find a rental apartment, take her time moving her things there, take the shared savings out of the safe, and leave a note on Ashley's desk. It had been 6 months since her divorce from Ashley. May hadn't had time to suffer and cry. True, she was annoyed by the counselors and sympathetic well-wishers. Of course he's ganging up on you. You're carrying yourself with another man's child, and of another man's blood. A man needs his own. Why did you have a baby? If you had, he wouldn't have left you. Mother said, well, of course, you were always running around with some ambitions of your own, sitting on his neck with someone else's trailer. Give this swarthy one to the orphanage and live at your pleasure. That's what my friend said. They're all like that, and no matter what you do for them, they'll still look to the left. You're right to get divorced. You don't need anyone now. And who'd be interested in you? There's someone else's child on Paddle. You're not old yourself. You're approaching 30, said the new neighbor. These are just a few of the unsolicited tips in May's life. To shield herself from unnecessary stock noise, she paused. Many friendships and family relationships indefinitely. True, before doing so, she mentally answered them all. I recently made a decision to be happy. Family alone is not the whole of happiness, it's part of it. The main thing is that I'm not going to turn my back on my path. If it takes getting married 11 times, I will do it. If it takes 30 times, I'll do that too, she said. Some of them twisted their fingers, some of them felt sorry for her, thinking that at such a young age she had lost her mind because of men. But most importantly, May didn't hear it all. She was busy with the baby. She worked slowly, set small goals, and just lived. One day she met a man again, even though she hadn't planned it. Dylan was a successful banker, read a lot, was able to hold conversations about high, well-versed in art and expensive wines. At first, May wondered what this groomed pepper found in her. I will not tolerate nearly a troubled woman, and there's a lot of them nowadays, hanging around my neck at every turn. Dylan once said that. Problematic in your mind is probably single mothers, unrealized, without solid ground under their feet, morally, psychologically infantile. Well, it's not your relationship problem, it's civilization's problem. That your white coat, that your pompous entourage around is all berries of the same tree. And that tree is called infantilization. And imagine, somewhere near you, there is another reality in which only mature individuals dwell. So people realize that if they want to, they can pull not only one woman with several children, but entire cities and countries. It's a matter of the scale of his personality. And the scale of my personality was so small that I was able to take responsibility for just one child. But I have a friend, let's say his name is Charles. Charles is frightened by the thought of even one child. He's basically terrified of anything that has to do with getting close to other people. And who's the problematic one of us? May said. Dylan immediately realized that he was getting involved in a game of equals. May's words caught him and threw him off balance. He barely restrained himself from getting sucked into the argument, even arguing a particularly strong argument he didn't have against this girl. While he was thinking of something to answer her with, May asked for the waiter's bill. Shall we split the bill or what? May asked. No, I'm not, said Dylan. If suddenly we have to be at the same table again, you don't hesitate to talk openly about splitting the bill, said May. In fact, she was very uncomfortable to be in the company next to such a pompous miracle, but the wonder didn't notice how she herself was caught up in the psychological game. May herself did not realize it either. After some time spent in agonizing attempts to understand this girl, Dylan decided that she was a unicum. He had heard that this was the kind of woman worth betting on. They talked about it from all the screens, advised everyone who could not help it. So he thought he was in luck. And the fact that May completely denies his views and attitude to everything remained unnoticed for himself. He wanted to flash his trump cards and raise the stakes, but he was influenced. That's how experts would probably describe his case. But 3 months later, Dylan proposed to May. She was against it at first, but then suddenly remembered the words of the witch Nicole from the isolation ward. It will be a worthy man. He will come to you with love. You can keep him out of your life. But if you let him out, everything will change and turn into a fairy tale. May agreed, for fear of missing out on the right man. The truth was, nothing about their relationship was going to change after they married. As always, they had different views. As always, Dylan said the wrong things, and when he got a decent response, he'd cower in a corner with resentment. After a while, he changed his tactics. You gotta play for the long haul. Now Dylan began to gradually diminish the value of everything that mattered to May. You're so sure of your views, as if you know the truth in the last instance. Meanwhile, you're embarrassing others, and that's very unethical. If you were really so advanced, you would consider the reactions of others. That's how Dylan sounded now. May had nothing to object to. Indeed, she likes to flaunt her opinion and original attitude to everything. And it turns out, you should be more modest. It's all because you haven't had a stable relationship, so it's hard for you to show sympathy for others. But I can see you have a lot of female potential. You're about to become a real woman. Dylan had his way with me. Behind these pathos words were concrete manifestations of life. May didn't notice how, in just a few months, she'd started giving up everything. Closet updates were no longer so important. Meeting with her friends was such a silly waste of time. Contacting relatives is stressful. Learning and growing. Where else would you go? You already know 3 foreign languages. You can sew, design, garden, cultivate wild mushrooms and exotic insects. Where else can you go? That's how May began to think under Dylan's influence. Over the years of encountering different manifestations of reality, May had developed a particular attitude toward changes in relationships. She now believed that in a relationship everyone is free. If someone goes left, it is solely their problem. To stay faithful or not is a person's choice. She considered this position comfortable for herself. But one day life again confronted her with a real manifestation of this position. She received a phone call from a woman she didn't know. I realized that Dylan is hiding things from you, but he and I are serious. He tells me a lot of things about you. Really good things, so I'll feel a little sorry for you when he makes his final choice, said the girl. And why are you calling me and telling me all this? May asked. To open your eyes, dear. I can see how hard it is for Dylan to be torn between 2 women. I feel he's close to making his choice. I just want to warn you not to let that day come as a shock to you, said the girl. May was in no hurry to talk about it with Dylan. She was thinking about her future life. Recently, she had said that she was ready to marry 11 or 30 times until she was happy. But in reality, it wasn't so easy. It seems like one more drop of pain and her heart will fail. It'll shatter, instead of suffering. Once again, May was once again dealing with practical problems. Finding a new place to live, finding a new daycare for the baby, ways to increase her income, and her leisure time when no one else would be around. Leisure time was a problem. It's good to strive to achieve something new when you don't know or know anything. In this case, the universe advises you to learn a new language, learn to do something with your hands. Join some subculture. But May's already done all that. She didn't want to do it again. In spite of all the trials and tribulations, she made a new decision. In her free time, she would just enjoy the moment. And if there was no enjoyment in the moment, she would take it as it came. So it won't be so boring. You can brighten such moments with some simple activity like playing games or dancing. And there she was again. She was drawn to dancing. Now she was learning belly dancing and enjoying it immensely. God, just when you take some grief, it immediately turns into joy, she thought to herself. And that's when the NYPD got an assignment from the diplomatic corps. 5 years ago, a female citizen kidnapped the unborn heir to a dynasty and entered the territory of his country. The girl's name is Agatha. It was not difficult for the police to find out the girl's place of residence. After a couple of hours, she was brought to the police station. "You are charged with kidnapping," she heard from the policeman. Agatha immediately realized who she was talking about. "But I left the baby with the woman. He's not with me, so there's no point in detaining me," she was leaning. In the end, Diana had to tell in detail the whole story of 5 years ago, how she returned to a lonely grandmother with a newborn baby, how she looked for a way to get rid of him. And when she found no solution, she simply left the baby with the elderly grandmother and flew back. All the police had to do was to verify the grandmother's residential address and pass the report through diplomatic channels. Fortunately for everyone involved in this long story, Grandma Dory was still alive. She said that she had handed over the baby to some stranger who was trying to commit suicide. When the baby's father heard the news, he grabbed his head. How could a newborn baby be handed over to a mentally inadequate person? He could not make a claim out loud, as he himself was not in a hurry to find the child. He only remembered about him when the time of the coronation was approaching. It was the dynasty's custom to determine the heir when he turned 7 years old. Amir's son should be 5 years old this year. It would take time to find him and adapt him to his true roots. The challenge ahead was to find this unknown girl. The only thing known is that her name is May, and she's probably crazy. Mai was seriously contemplating her fate this time. Yes, indeed, last time she did something stupid, believing the words of some fortune teller. Little did she know what they could tell. What prince? What fairy tale of love? It's more important to be grounded in reality than to be in the clouds. That's it, no more relationships, May promised herself. Even if someone came along, it would be to serve my interest if I wanted it. Otherwise, let's just leave it as it is. Aziz will grow up. He's very promising. He's interested in drawing and sports. I should put all my energy into his future, she thought. But May managed to live with the idea for exactly 2 months. Those 2 months without rebellious happiness and peace ended abruptly. In those days, Mai ran around the city all day long, setting up her business. On one of those days, "In that case, we should order in advance so we don't have to wait," May says. Sunu took out her phone and placed the order. "I don't want to go home. I want to play," said little Aziz. "No problem. Then now we'll go to the playground in the yard. It's dark out there, but you'll figure it out in the dark somehow," May told him. They arrived at the playground in total darkness. May took out her phone and turned on the light so that her boy could let off a little steam. A short time later, her phone rang and announced that a pizza delivery was on its way. Mother and son rushed home in anticipation of a cozy family dinner. However, neither of them noticed that someone was following them closely to the door. The very next day, May found a large gift box under the door. Inside was a lot of interesting things for the child and something for herself. And of course, a bouquet of flowers on the box. She was surprised, but she dragged the box into the apartment. Tonight they were going to have dinner with Eric. Tonight he asked her to bring Aziz. Eric promised to bring his daughter. The dinner together did indeed pass in a warm atmosphere. Strangely, Eric didn't say a word about the gifts he had sent. So that she wouldn't have to guess, May decided to clarify things herself. "Is there anything you want to tell us?" she asked with a smile. "For example, all I can tell you is that you are very nice. I wish we could get together in a circle like this more often and spend time together," said Eric. "But we wanted to thank you for the gifts you sent." "What gifts are we talking about?" "The ones you sent us by door courier. There were a lot of fun toys inside for weight." "Well, you guessed my preferences," May said unmistakably. "But I didn't send you any presents," surprised Eric. "I wonder who it could be then." May wondered. "It must be one of your ardent admirers," said Eric, smiling, and inside him, a needle of jealousy pricked. It was indeed a mystery to May who could have given them such nice attention. Not 3 days later, a new shipment of gifts was again under the door. And this time the toys for Asia were more serious, but there was something very expensive for Mai as well. Mai was seriously worried. This was all too expensive to be a sign of mere attention. She asked her neighbors if they saw anyone at her door. No one saw anything. 2 times is no accident, so there will be a 3rd time. We just have to follow up to recognize this generous and kind man. May thought, but even the third time she failed to catch the secret co-conspirator. So quite a lot of time passed. Mother and son got used to receiving such gift boxes regularly. True, Eric didn't like it all very much. One day he even made a jealous scene. "Honey, calm down, you and I are free and mature adults. Especially, I have no idea who this man is," May replied, briefly. Eric fell silent. Today, May was a little late to the daycare center to pick up her son. But when she arrived, she was confronted with a bitter fact. "Your son has already been picked up," the new teacher said. "Picked up how? Who took him?" May shouted. "Your husband is his father?" replied the young kindergarten teacher, as if it were true. "What kind of nonsense are you talking about? I don't have a husband. I'm raising him alone." "I'm sorry, I didn't know that. It's just that that man looked a lot like your son. You can't miss that resemblance," said the teacher. May clutched her head. She got into the car, but she had no idea where to go or where to look for her son. Maybe she could tell the police, but to do that, she'd have to at least provide pictures of the boy. It would just have to be quick. With this thought, she rushed home. On the way, she almost had an accident twice. Her mind was racing. How is it that some father appears so suddenly and takes her son without asking? Where was this father before? The resemblance said what good was his resemblance, if the little boy was once left completely unwanted by anyone? It's very interesting to look into this man's eyes. Thought she was angry. May drove to her house in an almost inadequate state. She got out of the car, forgot to close the door, and hurried home. Her condition was such that she didn't notice anyone or anything around her. She only stopped at the front door when she heard a familiar voice. "Mom." "Aziz." "I almost lost my mind." "Son," she shouted. Mother and son rushed into each other's arms. "Thank you, God. I can't do it without him," May whispered, hugging her son. "Excuse me, what made you scared?" The stranger turned to her. May turned around and saw a tall man next to her who looked like a soap opera actor. Indeed, his face was one and the same as Aziz's. "Please forgive me for not letting you know. It was so spontaneous." The man excused himself. "So you are his father?" May asked. "In all likelihood, yes. I think you know the whole story. Baba Dori is a witness to everything. My gratitude and my family's gratitude to you is immense. You may ask of us anything you wish. We are indebted to you beyond measure," said the man. "I don't need anything from you. Aziz is like my own son, but I don't hide the truth from him. If you want, you can visit him once in a while. Now we should go home. We're tired," said May and pulled her son by the hand. "Wait, you don't understand me. My son is the only heir to our dynasty. He is very important to us, so we have sought him out through diplomatic channels around the world. In 2 years, he must undergo initiation, so I will have to take him with me," the man said. "No, I'm not giving him away," May exclaimed and hurried home. Hearing Mai's categorical refusal, the man became very upset. He has no one to consult or complain to. He knows that anyone close to him will blame him and hold him personally responsible for the heir. And now the world has decided to use its last trump card. She has no chance of getting away with it. This tool has always worked perfectly and will continue to work, he told his friend the day before. "And if it doesn't work, what will you do then?" asked the friend. "In that case, I will have to go the way of a true warrior. To fight for this woman's heart, to win her favor and attention, I will fight until she wants to be by my side. It will be the most honest and honorable way," said Amir. The next meeting took place a couple of days later. Amir came to May and Aziz with another mountain of gifts. A table in a restaurant was already waiting for them. May accepted reluctantly. "May, I'm very touched by the way you've treated Aziz, and you've chosen the right name for him and raised him to be such a good boy. I can see that he has awakened your true maternal feelings so that it will be less painful for you to part with him. I offer a decent compensation," said the world and wrote something on a napkin. May saw a night figure on the napkin. "You're asserting yourself in vain with bargaining. It's not about the money. I'm not going to part with my boy on principle. If you go against our will, both of you will suffer. Not only me, but Aziz too," May replied. "I see. We will have to go the other way," Amir concluded. "I am surprised at your male logic," said Mani lastly. "Right now, you are deciding the fate of a man, and you don't ask for the man's opinion. So let Aziz himself say with whom and where he wants to live," said May. Aziz in his 5 years was accustomed to clearly realize his desires and formulate them. So the question of adults did not require much effort from him. I want to live with my mom, now I want to live with my dad too. He says my dynasty needs me. I think as a man I have to accept that too. Otherwise, who am I without my roots? The little hare has spoken. The couple May and Amir al-Khattab, along with little Prince Aziz, moved into the family palace in time for the hare's initiation day. The ceremony was held in the best traditions. Immediately after the official part announced another important change in the dynasty, the mother of Prince Aziz recognized May, and to her passes all the regalia of the queen of the dynasty. All of Aziz's younger siblings have also received their regalia, their proper place as they grow older. Assistant Than has finally learned all about her mysterious mistress. This only added to her respect for her.
Thank you for watching this video to the end. Subscribe to the channel. Like it, write comments if you like the story, and see you on the channel.